There are stories that survive time, and there are stories that refuse to die, no matter how many times they're buried. Melusine is one of them. She's called many things across Europe: water spirit, serpent woman, fae, goddess, demon bride. But beneath the entanglement, the myth and the accusations, the lies, something far more unsettling. Because Melusine is not just a figure of legend. She is a guardian of a lost bloodline, a keeper of a forbidden power, a symbol of feminine sovereignty that was seen as dangerous, so dangerous it had to be hidden. Welcome, my name is Caroline Bell Tumblety, and thanks for joining me. And today we walk into a legend that did not die, it was buried. It's a shapeshifter. It's ancient, and it's filled with core memory, soul memory. So if you listen closely, you'll feel it too, because Melusine doesn't just belong to the past. She's a mirror, and she returns now, because we are finally ready to see what has been kept from us. Her tale is one of love, sealed by an oath of marriage, built on forbidden union, and a betrayal that shattered worlds. But it's also a story of distortion and illusion, the kind that happens when truth threatens the powerful. And it gets rewritten, it gets demonised, it gets buried, forgotten, until now. It is said that Melusine first appeared in the green forested lands of Poitou in medieval France. Long before the Age of Kings cemented its power, she was seen by a young nobleman named Raymond, sometimes written Ramondi, on a night when fate itself seemed to intervene. So according to the legend, Raymond was grieving. He had accidentally caused the death of his uncle during a hunting accident and fled into the deep forest filled with despair. There, near a sacred spring, under the moonlight, he encountered a woman of otherworldly grace. Her name was Melusine. She was beautiful. Her presence held something ancient, something of the water and the moon. She spoke gently to him, offered comfort, and promised that his fortune could change if he would accept her offer. She would marry him, make him prosperous, and together they would build a dynasty. There was only one condition. He must never seek her out on a Saturday. No questions, no intrusions, no breaking the vow. And he agreed. And true to her word, Melusine brought fortune with her. Together they built magnificent castles. People whispered that she knew the secrets of the earth, that she could shape mountains and carve rivers. She gave Raymond many sons, each of them powerful, though touched by a strange mark, an echo perhaps, of her otherworldly blood. Some were said to be fierce warriors, others were rulers, some carried mysterious traits that made them feared. But power attracts suspicion, especially when it comes from a woman. And so the whispers began. Why did Melusine keep to herself on a Saturday? Why was she so devoted to the water? Who or what was she really? Raymond, once faithful, let doubt poison him. One Saturday he broke his oath. He spied on her as she was bathed in a hidden pool, and there he saw her true form. From the waist up, a woman, but from the waist down, a serpent, or in some versions, a woman with two powerful mermaid tails. And one of the logos that you see is Starbucks, the mermaid with the two tails. She was neither fully human nor entirely of this world. She was a being of water and transformation, sacred in origin, but feared by those who worshipped control. Raymond could have chosen love in that moment. He could have honoured his vow. But betrayal always enters the human story, or at least so it seems, through fear. And during a heated argument in front of their gathered court, he revealed her secret to the world and called her a demon. In that moment, her fate sealed itself. Heartbroken, Melusine transformed into a dragon-like serpent and flew from the tower, leaving her children behind. Yet it is said she still returned, unseen, to watch over her children, her bloodline. I've always been struck by this story, not as a fairy tale, but kind of as a warning. Why is feminine power always safe until it keeps a secret for itself? Why must every woman who holds mystery be called dangerous? Why did love become betrayal and truth become myth? Because the story was never about a monster. It's about a bloodline someone tried to hide. To call Melusine a simple folk tale is to ignore the weight of history moving in her story. Legends do not survive across centuries, languages and empires unless they carry something vital. And Melusine does. She is spoken of in France, Scotland, Ireland, Germany, Luxembourg, Spain and across the Baltic North. Yet she never changes. She's always a water woman, always a two-tailed serpent or mermaid, always bound by a forbidden union. So where does she come from? Before Europe was mapped by kings and borders, there was an older world. A world where rivers were worshipped as mothers, wells were portals, and the feminine was not feared, but revered as a living intelligence of nature. Melusine belongs to that world. Her name echoes ancient roots, from the Celtic Melusine linked to Mel, meaning honey or sweetness, and lus, L-U-S, meaning light or herb, a bringer of healing. Collected to Melusine of Britain lore, a fey woman of the sea, possibly linked to Melusine, meaning badly spoken of, a warning that her story was twisted even in name. Her earliest form is that of a warrior deity, a guardian of streams, rivers and sacred wells. Across Celtic lands, these wells were seen as wombs of the earth, vessels of rebirth and prophecy, like healing, sources of healing. To this day, Scotland, Ireland and Britain are covered in holy wells dedicated to mysterious ladies. Ladies' wells, Maidens' well, St. Anne's well, but many of them existed long before Christianity arrived. The church simply renamed them. Melusine also carries the unmistakable mark of a goddess, the serpent goddess tradition, long before the serpent was turned into a symbol of evil. It represented regeneration, life force, and ancient wisdom. The serpent sheds its skin, it transforms, it renews, just like water. It moves between worlds. In the ancient world, water and serpent were not separate. They were one symbol, and it belonged to the feminine. And here is the key no one talks about. Melusine is not the only one of her kind. The same being appears in different cultures. Coventa of Northumberland, goddess of wells and flowing water. Sulis of Bath, a healing goddess linked to hot springs and fate. Danu of Ireland, mother of the Turth de Danu, a river goddess. Sidena of Arctic waters, betrayed woman who became a sea queen. Artagratis of ancient Syria, the original mermaid deity. This is not a coincidence, it's a cultural memory. These are not random myths, they are fragments of an erased tradition, a lineage of powerful women, half in this world and half in another. Women who guarded the forces of life itself, water, birth, sovereignty and transformation. Melusine is part of that lineage, but unlike the others, her story holds something even more dangerous. She didn't just rule the water, she seeded bloodlines. And that is why her story survived. It wasn't just myth, it was a protected truth. To understand Melusine, we have to understand the symbols that surround her, because symbols are the oldest language in the world. Long before written history, humanity spoke through images and meaning, and those symbols held power. Water, serpent, wings, transformation, these are no random details in Melusine's story. They are her truth, and it's encoded. Water is not just a setting in myth. Like, it's water's memory, like we're made up of water. It's a primordial force that shapes worlds. It carries the songs of origin. In nearly every ancient culture, water belonged to the feminine, not because of gender, but because of its power to carry life between realms. The womb, the water, right? Birth begins in water. Even our blood was structured water, continually like salt, like the sea, like your tears, right? They're salt. Water is the bridge between spirit and matter, and that is the realm Melusine governs. Then there's the serpent symbology. The serpent is a symbol that was deliberately misunderstood before it was demonized. It represented regeneration, inner power, hidden knowledge, energy in our spinal column. Ancient priestess wore serpent amulets and crowns. Goddesses like Isis, Wadjet, Hecate carried the serpent as a sign of initiation and guardianship, of mystery. Even the staff of medicine today, the caduceus, carries twin serpents. There's nothing evil about it. The serpent became feared not because it was dark, but because it was powerful. Which brings us to the third symbol surrounding Melusine's sovereignty. Melusine was not only a water being, she was a builder and a landholder. In every version of her story, she establishes dynasties and raises strongholds. In Celtic tradition, there was a belief that no man could rule the land unless he was granted sovereignty by the feminine. Now, I know about hierarchies. We're talking about energies, right? Energies that are this realm, often symbolised through a sacred union with a supernatural woman connected to the land or waters. These women were known as sovereignty figures, keepers of the right to rule. Without her blessing, a king was nothing. So she was a sovereignty. She was a figure of sovereignty. She's not a monster in disguise. She was a guardian of power, and she was in plain sight. Which brings us to the uncomfortable question. If Melusine represents sovereignty, regeneration, water memory, and sacred lineage, who would benefit from twisting her into a demon? Who would gain by breaking the link between the people and the feminine power of the land? Who would want to bury the truth that the right to rule once came through the mother line, not the father line? Her story is not about a woman hiding a curse. It's about a system hiding a truth. Most people are comfortable leaving Melusine in the realm of fairy tale because the alternative is a wee bit more unsettling. What if she was real? Not in a literal sense of a woman with a serpent's tail, but as an ancestor of royal blood, a matriarch of a living lineage that shaped European power. So let's begin with something verifiable, right? Melusine appears as the founding mother of the House of Lusignan, a powerful noble dynasty in medieval France. Unlike most mythical figures, Melusine is written into genealogies, not myths. Family records, chronicles, didn't treat her as a story, they treated her as a bloodline. So the Lusignan family rose from obscurity to power almost overnight, just as the legend claims. Through war, marriage, and strategy, they became rulers of Poitou and Angoulême, and eventually expanded into the Crusader kingdoms. Members of the Melusine bloodline became kings of Jerusalem, Cyprus, and Armenia. This is not speculation, this is a historical record, and yet legend says those dynasties came from her. If Melusine was just a story, why would royal families, famously obsessed with pure ancestry, claim descent from a supernatural woman? Why would they preserve her name for over 700 years? Bloodlines guard their history fiercely. They do not attach themselves to nonsense unless there was a reason. So the house of Lusignan was not alone. Over time, they intermarried with the Plantagenets of England, the Bourbons of France, and the Habsburgs of Austria, and later branches of the Scandinavian nobility. This means Melusine's blood, whether it's symbolic or real, runs through European monarchy itself. And here is where the story grows stranger. In Luxembourg, Melusine is still known as the mother of the nation. Sculptures of her still watch over rivers and city walls in France. Medieval writers refer to her not as a monster, but as a Mère Lusignan, Mother Lusignan. Even the chronicles who condemn her still call her the foundress. This is not how cultures treat demons. This is how they speak of a forgotten queen. So what makes her so dangerous? That she must always have been beautiful but cursed, powerful but punished, devoted but betrayed? Because her story is not only about love and tragedy, it's about forbidden union. She marries into humanity, not out of weakness, but to seed a bloodline tied to ancient sovereignty. A bloodline that travelled across Europe, a bloodline that had not disappeared. And if we follow that trail, it does not end in France. It moves north, towards the sea, towards trade and empire, towards Gothenburg. When we follow the trail of Melusine's descendants, we are not just tracing genealogy, we are tracking power moving through history. After the fall of the Crusader states, the Lusignan bloodline did not disappear. It fragmented, migrated, and went underground. Some branches returned to France, others moved east, but a quiet and deliberate movement of this lineage went north into the emerging maritime powers. And this brings us to Gothenburg. I think that's how you pronounce it. Founded in the 17th century, Gothenburg appears on the surface to be a Swedish trading city, but it became something far more strategic, a northern gateway for old bloodlines to maintain influence through commerce, sea routes, and alliances. Beneath its economic rise, it became a crossroads for powerful European families, many tied to the French and the German noble networks, with links tracing back to the Lusignans. But why Gothenburg? Because control once held through kingship shifted into something less obvious. Trade, shipping dynasties, and merchant aristocrats. And those who once held land power shifted to sea power. And who rules the sea symbolically and mythically? Melusine, the water mother, the sea queen, the guardian of hidden lineage. Her symbols begin to quietly appear in the north. Twin-tailed mermaids and serpent women can still be found carved on northern ships, coats of arms, and merchant seals. There were no decorations. These were marks of allegiance, a quiet acknowledgement of where power really came from. Official explanations will tell you it symbolises national defence, but the deeper language of symbols tells another story. A guardian of the sea-born power with royal sanction, a northern echo of Melusine's legacy, the union of water, sovereignty, and lineage. From Gothenburg, the bloodline continues to move into Scotland. Scotland has always been a land of old alliances and quiet truths. The old alliance between Scotland and France preserved not just political ties, but noble marriages and blood ties. Between the houses of Europe, French noble lines with Lusignan inheritance found refuge, marriage alliances, and continuation in Scottish families. These unions were not random, they were part of a pattern. And Scotland, like Melusine, is a land of sacred waters, holy wells, lochs, river goddesses. This land remembers the old feminine sovereignty tradition. In myths, kings could not rule unless they united with the spirit of the land. In truth, Scottish history still carries fragments of a hidden feminine lineage, passed not through title, but through blood. So why don't we hear about this? Because history was written by those who feared bloodlines they could not control. Or also the victor gets to write the story, right? And they get to write whatever they like. And Melusine's descendants, those who carried the memory of sovereignty not granted by the Church or Empire, became a threat. Over time, their power became fractured, absorbed, and silenced. But symbols betray silence, and Melusine's symbols still surface in architecture, in an elite family crests, and yes, in the north, along routes of ancient power. It's not a fairy tale. It's like a forbidden history, and we're only now lifting the veil, and I find it all very, very fascinating. To understand what happened to Melusine's legacy after the Middle Ages, we have to follow the quiet paths of history, the ones that do not appear in public textbooks, but in private archives and oral traditions. The truth didn't vanish, it went underground. After the fall of the Crusader states in the 13th century, many noble families tied to the Lusignan line, those who traced themselves back to Melusine, lost their official thrones, but not their influence. Power doesn't die when titles are stripped. It simply changes form. And around this time, a new kind of guardian appeared, not kings, not priests, but an order, the Knights Templar. Publicly, they were warrior monks. In reality, they became something far more significant. The first international network of protected families, sacred knowledge, and hidden power in Europe. They moved freely between France, Scotland, Portugal, Cyprus, and the Holy Land. They guarded pilgrims, relics, and secrets, but they also guarded bloodlines. And they had a clear pattern of protecting families connected with mysterious or ancient heritage. The Templars were not theorists, they were builders and stone keepers. Stone keeps secret far better than paper. They used sacred geometry to encode meaning into architecture, like spirals, twin pillars, dragon motifs, and water symbolism. And somewhere between coincidence and intent, Melusine appears again, carved on cathedral stones, tucked inside alchemical manuscripts, and even used in heraldry linked to noble families supported by the Templars. When the church destroyed the Templars in 1307, those who survived did not vanish. Many escaped to Portugal, Scotland, two of the last safe regions outside direct papal control. In Scotland especially, they found noble houses already tied to ancient bloodlines, some of whom shared stories of a mysterious water ancestry and sovereignty through the feminine. Echoes of Melusine that had taken root long before. The Templar symbols began to merge with Scottish symbolism. From that fusion came Freemasonry, a philosophical and initiatory tradition born not from guild masons, as popular myth claims, but from Templar survival. And suddenly, the same knowledge Melusine symbolized, transformation, geometry, dual nature, water and spirit, was now seen in Masonic symbolism across Europe. The bloodline had gone esoteric. As history moved forward, new secret orders emerged, the Rosicrucians, elite Masonic circles, and later European royal societies. Whether you view them as guardians or gatekeepers, they shared one trait. They had knowledge and symbols. And among these symbols, Melusine kept reappearing: the two-tailed mermaid, the winged serpent, the water queen. In some circles, she was whispered not as a monster, but as an ancestor. Yes, she's an ancestor. Why would secret societies preserve her if she were merely a myth? Because they knew she was more. She was a marker of lineage, a keeper of old spiritual current that still runs beneath Europe like an underground river. Some wanted to protect it, others just wanted to control it. This is why Melusine matters today. She represents ancient ancestral memory. Truth carried in the blood when it cannot survive in books. She represents sacred geometry, knowledge of how energy moves through the earth like the water and through us. She represents feminine sovereignty that once anointed kings, and threatens systems built on domination instead of balance. And most of all, Melusine is a living archetype of what was hidden but not lost. Her story did not end with betrayal. It passed into symbols, stone and blood, water, waiting for those who could read it. It's easy to dismiss a legend. It's harder to ask why it was rewritten. Melusine was not always a monster. She became one because someone needed her to be. There's a pattern in history. When a woman carries power that cannot be controlled, she is rewritten as a danger. When she holds knowledge that threatens an empire, she's turned into a warning. When she represents a truth older than the church, she becomes a heretic, a temptress, a witch, or in Melusine's case, a serpent. But that serpent was once sacred. At the heart of her story is betrayal, not hers, but the world's betrayal of what she represents. A woman with a secret part of herself, a woman who keeps a boundary, a woman who will not surrender all of her power for comfort, and so she must be punished. By story, if not by sword. Her tale became a weapon, a warning whispered through generations. Do not keep your mystery. Do not hold your sovereignty. Do not cross the boundaries set for you. And above all, do not mix bloodlines with those outside the approved order. Melusine's love for Raymond was recast as deception. Her power to build cities was recast as sorcery. Her lineage was recast as curse. And the real crime, the crime of breaking an oath, was never hers. She held her word. He broke his. But even now, the world repeats the lie. Beware of the serpent woman. She's hiding something. But what if she was hiding something that belonged to us all? Her secret was not a sin. It was origin. Her bathing was not shame. It was ritual. Her transformation was not a curse. It was her nature, a power to shift between worlds, between forms, between seen and unseen. She carried a truth that beings once knew, that we are not only flesh, we are spirit, moving through form. We are water in motion. We are ancient memory wearing a temporary face. Melusine was never meant to be feared. She was meant to be remembered, and that is why she is returning now, not as a fairy tale, but as a signal. Her story rises again every time a woman refuses to betray herself. Every time we reclaim a part of ourselves we were told to hide. She's not a myth. She's a mirror. Melusine was never a creature divided. She was a being who belonged to two worlds, the physical and the mystical. She was transformation embodied, and in that way she is a mirror for us. This is not only a story for women, though women feel it keenly. the long exile of the feminine spirit, the distortion of the mystery or shadow sides, the punishment of power. But men too carry this wound. The suppression of the feminine has also starved the sacred masculine, the noble protector, the honourable seeker of truth. Without the feminine, he was severed from the soul of the world. Without the masculine, she stood unshielded against empire. What was broken between Melusine and Raymond was not just a marriage, it was a rupture between masculine and feminine, a betrayal that echoes across centuries. And now, as we begin to heal, her story rises, not as a tragedy, but as an invitation. Reclaim what was hidden, restore what was broken, return to what is true. The living current that carries intuition, memory, energy, and spiritual inheritance. Melusine lives there in the quiet centre, in the deep remembering, and the part of you that refuses to forget who you are. She is not here to be worshipped, she's here to be remembered. So the story's not over, it's just beginning. Melusine is rising across symbols, across land, across blood, because we are ready to see what we once could not. So the question's not, was she real? The question is, what truth did she carry that someone tried to bury? Thank you for watching. I'm Caroline Bell Tumblety, and this was another episode of Navigating the Truth. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you if you have. Hit the notification button, the like and comment, and I'll be back again.